Today's video is all about the suspension on the Mustang, what changes and tweaks that I've made, what's worked, what hasn't, and what direction I think that I need to go in, so stay tuned. Welcome. If you guys follow along in the videos, then you've probably picked up on a trend that I changed the suspension a lot on the car. And those are all the ones that I tell you guys about. I'm always changing, tweaking the car, and that's part of tuning. That's part of making the car grippier, making the car faster. I'm by no means a suspension expert. I'm still learning everything that I can, so everything in this video will be kind of my thoughts and opinions at this moment. Those can change with new information tomorrow or in the future. Also, this video will get a little technical. I'm sorry for those of you that might not be technical. I'll try to explain things the best that I can. So I've done quite a bit of changes at the last couple of events to try to figure out what to make the car faster. You know, watching a video at the last event, actually, I flipped the camera around and was filming underneath the car, so I was able to actually see the front tires pretty good. And I noticed that the outside edge of the inside tire was starting to kind of really lift off the ground, which I have done in the past, and I've had to make suspension tweaks to do that. To show you a few of the other changes, let me get this wheel pulled off and we can actually take a look at the suspension. I'm going to use this as my pointer in here because it is a little tight. I want you guys to have the best view. After Nationals, based on like pictures and feel of the car, I was noticing like a lot of rolling going on where the splitter was getting close to the ground, and then also the splitter hitting the ground under braking. So to fix that, or just maybe try to help that, I made a change to this upper control arm. So I have two mounting points, front and back here, and if I change those, I can change how much the car dives under braking. I can change roll center and things like that. So I have two adjustments on this upper control arm, a higher one and a lower one, and the back is a little bit lower. So I have anti-dive already factored into the system, but I lowered just this rear one, which gives more angle of this upper control arm, thus increasing my anti-dive. So with this, I was hoping that the splitter would no longer hit the ground because the car would not be diving as much under braking. Also, by just lowering this rear one, it raises my roll center, so then the car will not want to roll as much. It will kind of make it seem like it has stiffer springs because I don't have any other springs to put in there, but it can have some negative effects of putting like jacking forces into the suspension. So your frame, your mounting and everything needs to be strong enough to be able to take those increased forces. I think everything is strong enough, and I didn't raise it that much. I think I actually raised it to where it should be. So the roll center right now is about 3 3/4 above ground, and then comparing that to my rear one, which with the panhard bar is 6 inches off the ground, it gives a pretty good roll axis inclination angle. So that's something that I've been trying to read up on and learn, and there's no really good information out there of like what angle you should have going from the back, but I'm thinking that I'm in the right ballpark now. So that is one big change that I made, and that seemed to do really well. So that was for the Under the Lights event, where the car did finish like second in packs and roll and first in class and all that stuff. So I've left that in ever since that event, and I'm really happy with how that is feeling. Also, since then, I had a video on it. I've checked the nitrogen pressure in the shock, and I've got that back up. So that was changed for basically the last event. So that's good. Bump steer, I also checked and got that all configured correctly. So that is I'm no longer getting toe out in the wrong directions. Now the only other change that I've made in here is this sway bar. So I went back to my largest sway bar that I have. So this is the Steeda 35 millimeter one. I had a 30 millimeter one in there, but I went to this one to try to eliminate that roll just a little bit more. So if you are able to transfer the weight quicker from side to side in transitions, I mean, there is you don't want to transfer too fast, you don't want to transfer too slow. So I was trying to increase that lateral weight transfer. So I put in the bigger sway bar. At the last event, I think it did really well. I really like the feel of it. In the rear, I did change the anti-roll bar. I don't have that much adjustment in the back, so it's just coilovers with Bilstein shocks, so those aren't even adjustable. And really all I can change in the back is the pan hard bar, the sway bar, ride height, things like that. So I haven't changed anything in there other than the sway bar. At the last event, I went in with the 23 millimeter bar, and it was feeling a little loose. Like I had that moment in the turn, which maybe that was more driver induced than car induced, but also in that long sweeper, it was kind of wanting to, the back end was kind of like rotating a little bit. And so I wanted to make it a little bit more understeer. Understeer is safer. So I went to the 21 millimeter bar in the rear. And as you saw for the Sunday event of the last event, the car was phenomenal. It was really, really good. As I mentioned in the last event, I noticed that it was kind of riding on the inside edge a lot, and you can kind of see that there is a lot of material kind of pushing that direction. So this also leads me into, I bought a new tool. So I saw this used a lot at Nationals. So it's just an oscillating tool to kind of come in here and be able to clean off this rubber, this OPR they call it, other people's rubber basically. But yeah, to help clean that all off, so I'll need to go around and get this tire really cleaned off. But to fix that, hopefully, at least this is in theory what should hopefully help, I'm going to reduce the front camber. So right now, the car is running at -4 degrees, which is a lot for an SLA. So I'm going to reduce it down to 3 degrees. So I'm hoping that will give more contact patch of tire on in the turns. So then I should be able to go faster through the turns, is at least the theory and the hopes of that. Yeah, you don't want to be lifting the tires off the ground. That's reduced surface area basically that you're taking away from the tire capability. You're also not using the inside tire as much. Most of the load is going to the outside tire in a turn, but still want the tires to be on the ground and using as much of the contact patch as possible. So that is one change that I am going to be doing. To do that, I am going to have to kind of take apart a lot of the suspension. So yes, I could just put a shim in that upper control arm to space it out and reduce my camber. But then I am pushing the top of the tire out. So I want to try to pull the bottom of the tire in. So I'm going to take my lower control arm off, adjust the rod end, and kind of pull that stuff in. Another change that's not going to happen right away, but I'm looking into based on some feedback, is increasing the spring rate in the front. So I do have 800-pound springs in there now. Looking at maybe going to 900, maybe 1,000. I think it's a little too high a frequency, but right now I'm like a 2.2 hertz with 800 springs. So trying to get maybe to like a 2.5 might be a little bit better. We'll see. So, but yeah, increasing the front spring rate, and then I can lower that sway bar. So if I put a bigger spring in, I can put a smaller sway bar back into the car, which would help, I think. You don't want to go too big on these things, but they are tuning tools. So that's what a sway bar is there for, is to kind of adjust the balance of the car. I do have quite a bit of them to be able to swap in and out. So I have 3 front sway bars, 2 rear sway bars. Then another change for the rear, I recently picked these up used. So these are 350-pound springs for the rear of the car. So right now I have 300s in there. So my theory in this is to go to just springs and remove the rear sway bar. So go to something nice and stiff. Also, like if you're lifting up a tire, increasing the rear spring rates will make it to where the car is not rolling onto that backside, and should keep that opposite inside tire, front tire down on the ground. So that's why I'm going to increase the spring rate in the back and remove the rear sway bar. Another thing that I'm going to be doing in this off season is probably getting the front shocks revalved, since I've increased spring rate so much from when they were originally done. So I do need to get those probably revalved to work with these the current spring rates that I was running. That leads me on to tuning. So this is just part of suspension tuning. There's tweaks. Yes, there's math and calculations and things involved in setup, but it also then just comes down to testing and driving the car and seeing how it actually feels. That's one of the big problems with autocross, is you don't really get testing, and the courses are always different, and we drive on so many different surfaces. So just like this year, I've gone to a couple of circle tracks, I've gone to parking lots, I've gone to airfields, I've gone to road courses. So just all kinds of different surfaces. But yeah, tuning, testing is just like not something that we really get to do with autocross, and we have to do it like at events. So, and it's really hard to tell if a setup worked or didn't work, unless it's just like completely undrivable or anything like that. But you got to base it on how you compare to other people that are either really fast, or their cars are staying consistent, or they're consistent drivers, or things like that. So that's why I think I'm going kind of in the right direction. I feel like the car has gotten quicker in these last couple of events, opposed to earlier in the year where I was struggling a little bit. But maybe I'm just more comfortable at those locations. So what I'm really trying to say, guys, don't be scared to change up your setups, to test different things, to try different things. You never know until you actually go out and do it. Yeah, someone's gonna say like, oh, that spring rate's not gonna work, or you should do this instead, or this is what I have on my car. All cars are different, everyone's driving style is different, all the courses are different, surfaces are different. My suspension has all kinds of adjustment in it, and I'm sure yours does too. I mean, you can change camber, caster, toe. If you have some aftermarket K-member or something, you can probably change the lower mounts there, which will change your roll center and all kinds of different things that I'm sure is possible that you can do. I'm by no means an expert on suspension. I am still learning as much as I can. I'm reading books, going on forums, asking the questions. Corner carvers isn't really around too much anymore, but the forum is still available. So I highly recommend you guys to go on there and just search. You can't join it, but there is tons and tons of good information still available on corner carvers. So I highly recommend to go onto that site and just search and just read as much as possible. And then there's books. So I recently got Tuned to Win by Carol Smith. Yeah, it's a little bit old. It's like from the 80s, and it is more probably geared towards open wheel cars, but he does talk a little bit about stock cars, sports cars, sedans, I think is how he puts it. And a lot of this stuff does carry over between all the cars. I mean, all cars experience understeer and oversteer and things like that. So a lot of good information in that book. Highly recommend that one as well. And yeah, otherwise, thank you guys for watching. Maybe a little bit of a rambling one for this one, but hopefully it had a lot of good information in there that will help you, and maybe get out to the garage and tweak your setup and try to make it a lot faster. That's what I'm doing, so let's keep up.